Hey family, what's good? What's good? What's good? It is so good to be back. Happy New Year to everybody. So glad to see you all here. Let me go ahead and adjust camera and all that good stuff. We are slightly less purple for the new year, and I'm gonna tell you what, I don't really know why. I've adjusted the lighting several times, but it's not picking up that hue that we're used to. So we're just gonna go ahead and keep it locked and keep it loaded for what it is right now, and get it started. Lovely to see you all here. I see Angel Monique is here with us. I see Lisa Bobbitt is here. Hello. I see Angela Lee Rain. So good to see you. I see Erica Yolita is here, joining us over on YouTube. I see Kelly James. I see Homie Lou is here. And she's very happy because she thought we weren't getting a story tonight. But we are. We getting a story tonight. We're getting a story tonight. Um, I see Kelly James. I see Iowan Tribal Stone Flowers. So good to see you. Joining us over on Twitch, there's another storyteller. Storytime Sunny is here. Good to see you joining us on Twitch. Angel Monique, I already said. Just happy to have all of you here. And man, just happy to be back. And can I say it? Can I say it for all of us? Just happy to be on this side of 2021. I know y'all feel me. I know I'm not the only one who is sitting here mad stressed about just getting out of 2020. And I'm not generally that way. I don't generally like to rush years ahead. As the cool hairs get a little bit cooler and I get a little bit older, I'm not so keen on trying to rush my years. I like them to slow down the way they were nice and slow when we were back in school, right? When we were school age, it seemed like it took forever for a year to get to the end. The way things are now, it seems like the years just come to an end quicker than we know. But this was one of the few years that I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't be too mad if you went. And I think back to like 2016 was a year when we lost a lot of people in particular. And uh, it's years like that that make us want to say, oh, okay, this year is too much. But the reality is that years will always take someone from us. So far in 2021, among many others, I'm sure, we lost MF Doom, one of my absolute favorite MCs, a great storyteller in his own right, through the work that he did in music. We've lost Shabba-Doo, who many of you know from Breaking and Breaking 2, phenomenal dancer, performer, choreographer. And just today, we learned that. Now, to be clear, I should back up. We lost MF Doom literally in 2020, and he actually passed well before the end of the year, but it was only announced on New Year's Eve. Um, but this is not necessarily being the most auspicious year. And just today, we learned of the passing of Eric Jerome Dickey, who is a prolific and phenomenal writer. And we're going to talk about him a little bit more a little bit later in the show. But here we are, despite a lot of loss. And I know that many of you have suffered loss of friends, family, loved ones, associates, coworkers. Here we are. We are still here. We are on this side of 2021 and we are able to share our stories. Um, our story continues. And I want everybody to be present to that. That if you're here today, having come out of 2020, oh, you got a story to tell. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, you do. And I want to encourage you that whatever your method of storytelling is, whether you are an orator, whether you are a writer, whether you are an artist, a visual artist, a performer, whatever it is that you use to express yourself, if you do that in the kitchen, then you find the recipe that speaks to the year that you just survived and you make that yours and you tell that story however you tell your stories. Please, ma'am, please, sir, do not take lightly the gift and the testimony of your simple presence on this side of 2021. I see we had a few more people join us, and I'm glad to see that. I see that we've got Joker is here. I see that Kamisha Umstead has joined us. Hey, what's up, Kamisha? I see L Jack is here. What up, though, fam? So, we're going to do a few things today. First of all, do be clear that we are going to share a piece from Eric Jerome Dickey tonight, just in honor of him. I would not be true to the spirit of this show if I did anything less. We're also going to hear a short piece from Walter Mosley's latest collection, The Awkward Black Man. And, I always like to close with a little bit of simple if time permits. But today, if you will indulge me, and I really hope you do, I see someone sent me an angry face. I don't know what we're angry about. It's awfully early in the year to be angry. But today, if you will indulge me, I'd like to share with you something that I recently wrote. Some of you, those of you who have been fans and have supported on Patreon, may recall from the old show. It's not fair to call it the old show. That makes it seem like it's never coming back, which I know not to be true. But you might remember from the previous show, I Just Be Saying Words, you may have heard the episode where I read a piece called No Adulting Today. And it was an original piece. It was a children's story for grown-ups. In the children's story format, written for grown-ups. It's illustrated. It's, the whole nine, little cute thing. Um, the piece that I'd like to share with you tonight, I wrote just a little while ago, not too terribly long ago, and it is in that same vein. It is in that same vein of children's stories for grown-ups, and it's lighthearted. It's a little bit of fun. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to move into a celebration and acknowledgement of the life and work of Eric Jerome Dickey. And then after that, we're going to hit some Walter Mosley. And then after that, we'll see if time gives us a little bit of room for simple. All right. So this first piece that I'd like to share with you is, and you're going to actually, this is its, I guess, official debut, but it's actually going to show up on a couple of other podcasts because I have some friends who work in spaces where this story would be beneficial, and you'll understand that a little bit better by and by as we get to the end of it. But okay, L Jack's telling me the angry face was accidental. I'm glad, because I'm like, I don't even know what I said to make somebody so mad so early in the game, right? Like, we just getting started. If you mad already, whew, we're not gonna make it. So I'm glad to know. I'm glad to know that that was accidental. But here we are. This piece is called Ninja, Get Your Life Together. A ninja wasn't feeling himself lately. In fact, a ninja was feeling pretty low. A ninja wasn't feeling powerful. A ninja had let himself go. A ninja lost his sense of excellence. A ninja lost his whole bushido. So a ninja spent most days on the couch, streaming shit, eating burritos. A ninja no longer moved in stealthy grace. He barely moved at all. Instead of throwing shuriken blades, he threw Doritos at the wall. After a while, a ninja's roommate had to get in a ninja face. Ninja, what the fuck is wrong with you? Man, look at this friggin' place. Your katana's in the kitchen, your nunchucks hanging in the shower. Ninja, baby, what you doing? It's like you lost your sense of power. A ninja knew he wasn't on his shit. His homie hadn't lied. But a ninja just rolled over on the couch and ninja sighed. He'd failed so many missions lately, he had lost his ninja stride. He wasn't thinking harikari, but after a while, a ninja tired. So he defied his ninja training, did what ninjas never did. He tapped out, gave up, thought to himself, they not checking for the kid. But because ninjas don't speak, he told no one he was hurting. So to others, it appeared he was just lazy or just shirking his responsibilities, and maybe that was a little true, but when a ninja loses power, what's a ninja supposed to do? The ninja's homie sat next to him and just looked him in the eye, and without words, he understood it. Man, it's okay if you cry. Ninja, you ain't gotta be all deadly, dangerous, badass all the time. You can take a minute for yourself. You gotta give a ninja time. You had it rough lately. It's hard out here for ninjas. Facts. If you need a minute, I get it. I can cut a ninja slack. But what you can't do, little ninja, is just lay there brokenhearted. Take the time, pull it together, But after that, let's get it started. Set some goals, man. Make a plan. Practice doing ninja violence. You ain't got to tell nobody because real ninjas move in silence. Gather up your arsenal. You'll feel closer to your power. Put your tunics in the laundry. Wash your mask and take a shower. This won't make everything better, but you'll feel more like yourself. And ninja, tend to your Zen garden. Prioritize your mental health. I'm here if you ever want to talk, though I know that's not what you do. And that's okay, my ninja. Be yourself. That's all we want from you. Don't forget the people out here love your deadly, dangerous ass. And if you fell short, man, we got you. Sometimes we all just need a pass. Ninja ain't nobody perfect. That's not ever what's expected. But you gotta keep on striving. Each day gets closer to perfected. You're gonna fall, man. You'll take hits. Someday your blades just won't feel sharp. When that happens, take a breath and focus. Know that in your heart, man, you a ninja. You a warrior, man. You got this. For real, you do. And when you don't believe in yourself, just know that I believe in you. A ninja sat there, eyes now misty. He was stuck. He had no words. For a person who moved in silence, it felt so good to feel so heard. A ninja dapped his homie up, brushed the chip crumbs off his tunic, and knowing someone had his back, he spoke. All right, man, let's get to it. And thus endeth the story. You've just heard Ninja Get Your Life Together, written by yours truly, Julian Long, under the pseudonym Uncle Juice. This is copyright 2021. And I just wanted to share that little piece with you. If you've ever been the ninja, understand it's okay. It happens. Sometimes even the smoothest of us, even the most graceful and stealthy and dangerous badasses of us, have days when it's hard to get up off the couch. And that's okay. It's okay that those days are going to come. But know that that's not who you are. That dent in the couch is not who you are. It's where you are. And you can move from there. And I understand because I'm like that. I am one of those kinds who, well, I'm a ninja. I don't always say what's going on with me. I move in a lot of silence because sometimes I don't like to use words because words can be weaponized against you. For somebody who loves words, there are times when I just can't quite find the ones that feel soft enough that if they come back, I'll be okay with it. So I say nothing. And I know that I'm not the only one. So I wrote this story because sometimes you're the ninja and sometimes you're the homie. I wrote this story to be the homie. For all my other ninjas out there, I see you. Let's get to it. All right, y'all. So that was Ninja Get Your Life Together. And we are about to go into the show proper. For those of you all who are interested in Get Your Life Together and who would like to have it when the illustrations are done in its actual book form, you're going to want to stay tuned. When I reopen my Patreon, it's going to be one of the first things distributed through my Patreon. So if you want it, that's going to be the first place to get it. I told you all some great things were going to be happening in 2021, and that's just the beginning of it. Let's talk about Eric Jerome Dickey. And I'm going to call this part of the segment Dickens versus Dickey. And I'll tell you why in a minute. Well, I'll tell you why right now. So tonight I will be reading my first ever Eric Jerome Dickey piece. I don't mean first ever on the show. I mean first ever in life. I have never read anything by Eric Jerome Dickey. When he came into prominence, it was just as I was entering college. And like a lot of smart black kids going into college, I thought I knew everything. This was during that time when to be young, gifted, and black. Like that was what's on your sweatshirts. That's what's on your t-shirts. That's how we looked at ourselves, talked about ourselves. And there's not a damn thing wrong with that. Let me be real, real clear. There's not a thing wrong with that. But like most of my peer group, it took that time for us to learn that we had a lot to learn and that all of our presuppositions about the world and how it worked and what was valuable and what wasn't valuable, all of that was going to be turned on its head. Um, Eric Jerome Dickey during that time was, for me, again, at that time, one of those writers. One of those writers. And that attitude, that mentality persisted through the early 2000s. So the late 90s to the early 2000s, I put Eric Jerome Dickey in a category of, black writing for those people. Really, really trashy way of thinking. I own it. That was a garbage mindset. I was young. I was stupid. I'm a little older now. My hair's a little cooler now. I got rid of some of the distractions up here so I could catch the vibrations a little clearer. You feel me what I'm saying? But at that time, um, I had an aversion to a lot of contemporary black literature. Now I liked B.B. Moore Campbell. I could get with that. But I couldn't get with Eric Jerome Dickey. My sensibilities at the time said that, this is that kind of trashy black writing that, drags us down as a people. Just really, again, really putrid, anti-black and elitist kind of thinking that I had yet to get over. What I didn't realize at the time was that the prolificness of this man, this author, he's written well over 30 books. Um, doesn't write many short stories because, in his own words, he just can't seem to do it. He starts writing a story, and the next thing you know, he's got 300 pages. That is the kind of writing of a person who has to write because it's in him, because he has stories to tell. Now, Eric Jerome Dickey could have been doing other things with his life. We did not have to be blessed with the 30 plus books and other pieces and stories and collections that he's contributed to, because Eric Jerome Dickey started his career path working in aeronautics, space aeronautics to be specific. He was a software engineer and developer who one day looked at his life, his presumably pretty fucking comfortable life, and said, this isn't really what I want to do. I got to pause right there because that by itself is a testimony to amazing courage and conviction. Because I'm going to tell you, it took me 20 years walking in my career path. And, once those commas start getting in place and you got more than 5 numbers, it starts to feel good. You ain't going nowhere. So for him to have made that move and say, "No, I'm done," that's powerful. But he left that world and he decided first to be a performer. So he was an actor and a stand-up comic for a while. Now, having done stand-up comedy, I'm gonna tell you right now, even terrible stand-up comics are some of the most interesting people you will ever meet. So already you've got a STEM nerd, a black STEM nerd who, and I mean, if you've seen pictures of him, he's a good-looking dude. So he, actor material, who's got an imagination, who, you know, has the courage and the wit to go up and do a hot 7, because I'm gonna tell you, getting in front of any cold microphone to try and deliver anything takes another tremendous amount of courage. So this is probably one of the most interesting and courageous dudes I could have had the pleasure of knowing, but I was too busy judging him for what I thought. What I thought he was. And again, we didn't have to get any of what this man created because he could have been any of those things. But somewhere along the line, in between actor and stand up comic, presumably while he was working on material, he found that his gift was best expressed in writing. And so we end up with a man who, at a midpoint in his career, says, and flips it and decides to become a writer. And only after that midpoint does he deliver to us 30 plus books and other pieces. That's who Eric Jerome Dickey was just at the beginning. But I was too arrogant to see all of that. Didn't look into the man, looked at the cover of a few books, read a couple of spines, saw where I saw the books, whose rooms they were in and where on the shelf and how close they were to a Zane or not for me to decide. And so I'm sure I missed out. That's going to end tonight. I'm going to discover Eric Jerome Dickey for the first time with you on this program. And if you all have never heard any of his pieces, well, you'll get to hear some now because that's how it's going to go down. The piece that we are going to read tonight is an excerpt from Thieves' Paradise. This is found, you can find this for those of you all who are, we kind of have an unofficial book club, right? Like, you know the books that we buy, and we always sort of put up a link. For those of you all who have already purchased Gumbo, you can find this excerpt in Gumbo. And if you are part of the I like to read along sect, you can do that by turning to page 267 in your copy of Gumbo. Otherwise, just go ahead and listen. We're going to do some Eric Jerome Dickey. Now, I said Dickey versus Dickens, and remind me of that when we finish, and I'll explain why I said that. Mama shrieked. The walls echoed her cries for Daddy to get his hands off her. Brought her pleas up the stairs to my room. I jumped and my algebra book dropped from my chestnut desk onto the floor. My father cursed. By the time I made it to the railing and looked down into the living room, Mama was in front of my father begging for forgiveness. Her petite frame was balled up on our Aztec-patterned sofa. She was holding her lip to keep the blood from flowing onto the fabric. I watched her rub away the pain on her cinnamon skin, then run her fingers through her wavy coal-black hair. My old man looked up at me and grimaced. "Go back to your room, boy." I was 15 and a half, less than half my old man's age. He stomped toward Mama. She screamed and moved away from him like she was trying to run from the madness that lived here every day. My chest heaved as I stumbled past the grandfather clock and rushed down the stairs. My heart was pounding. I tightened my hands and hurried to my mama's side. "Mama," I moaned as I kneeled next to her. "You okay?" "I'm all right, baby. It's nothing. Nothing." I looked back at my liquored up old man. He bobbed his head and pointed back to the kitchen. "I work hard all day and come home to no dinner." He was slurring and sneering down on us. I said, "Nobody knew you were coming home tonight." Mama tried to get up. "I overslept. My pills made me—" "Carmen," he shouted, "get up off of that sofa and cook, now! Planet of the Apes comes on in an hour, and I want my food on the table by the time Charlton Heston—" "Don't ever touch my mama again." "What you say?" He didn't say anything." Mama touched my arm. "I'm okay, baby. Go back and finish studying for your test." Daddy's back straightened. His bushy mustache crooked as his lips curved down. His eyes widened. "What you say to me, nigga?" "I'm not a nigga. My name is Dante." "So, the nigga speaking up for himself." "You heard me the first time, and I ain't a nigga." "You challenging me? What? You think because you got a little hair over your dick, you a grown man now? Ain't but one man in this house." Mama spoke carefully to Daddy. Don't get upset." I frowned at the shiny badge on the chest of his tan uniform, then at the gun in his leather holster. He sucked his teeth, nodded, and jerked the badge off. He threw the gun holster on the love seat. He stepped away from the glass coffee table, opened his arms, and snapped out, "You want to be a man? Come on. I'll give you first shot. Nigga, I'll knock your black ass into the middle of next week." Mama gripped my arm tight enough for her nails to break my skin. I glanced at the golden cross she had on her chest, the one she had gotten from her mother just a few weeks before Grandmama died. I looked into my mama's light brown eyes that looked like mine. "Let me go, Mama." "No." She put her nose against mine and whispered, "Mama's okay. It's just a little scratch. My knees shook when I stood and faced my old man. When his eyes met mine, his anger held so much power that I forgot how to breathe. Heat, heart went into overdrive. He balled up his right fist, slammed it into the palm of his left hand. It echoed like thunder. What you gonna do, nigga? I trembled, backed away, and said, Nothing. Nothing what? Nothing, sir. I kicked my bare feet into the rust carpet, then slumped my shoulders, wiped my sweaty hands on my jean shorts, and turned around to go back to my room. Then that motherfucker chuckled. A simple laugh that stoked up the rage inside of me. I charged at him as fast and hard as I could. Mama screamed. Daddy's eyes widened with surprise, pain, anger, fear. 3 screams from 3 people. From the back seat of the police car, I stared through the wired cage at the colorful rotating lights that were brightening. Scottsdale's earth-tone stucco houses. I was hostage under a calm sky. The spinning glow from 12 squad cars looked like rainbows chasing rainbows. Colors raced all over the sweet gum trees and windmill palms. Moved like the strobe, and windmill palms moved like the strobe lights over the Van Hout spire in front of the 3-car garage. The reek of cordite was on my flesh. Couldn't really smell it over the stench of my stress sweating. I concentrated on the colors to make the pain from the tight handcuffs go away. Watched the rainbows come and go. The door opened. A dry May breeze mixed with sweltering car air. A police officer stuck his sweaty head inside. His face was hard, his voice angry and anxious. Your mother wants to say something to you before we lock your ass up. We wouldn't let her say a damn word to you after what you did. Do you mind? I stared straight ahead. No. He raised his voice. No what? No. I repeated in a way that let him know I thought that all of them were assholes for making me out to be the bad guy. I don't mind. He gripped the back of my neck. You're pretty belligerent. I was a knob-kneed reed of a boy. Hadn't lifted anything heavier than an algebra book and could barely run a mile in BE without passing out. That was before I started pumping weights, before squats, before doing 200 push-ups in the morning to start my day, doing sprints, before the hooks and the jabs and the side kicks and the roundhouse kicks and the spinning back kicks became my trademark. I said, fuck you. With his other hand, he grabbed the front of my throat and squeezed, made me gag and look into his blue eyes. He growled, say no, sir. I don't mind, sir, you insolent bastard. He let me go when another officer passed by. I gagged and caught my breath while perspiration trickled down my forehead into my eyes. I tilted my head and looked at him. He smirked. Now, what you have to say? I spat in his face. His cheeks turned crimson. He stared at me while my saliva rolled down his scarred face into his ill-trimmed wheat-colored mustache. That's your ass, boy. Veins popped up in his neck while he stood there, handkerchief in hand, clenching his teeth and wiping my juices from his eye. He kept watching me, wanting me to break down and show my fear. It was there, but I refused to let it be seen. Another officer passed by, and Scarface told him what I'd done. It looked like they were about to double team me, but the second officer said they had to report the assault, and they both stormed away. A second later, the door opened again, and my mother eased her face inside. She said, "Don't hate me." "Love you, Mama." I smiled. "Get away from here." She fondled her wedding ring. Tears formed in her eyes. She dropped the police blanket from her shoulders, took her cross off, and put it around my neck. She used her soft fingers to wipe the sweat from my eyes. "Somebody'll come get you out. Maybe Uncle Ray. You might be able to go back to Philly and stay with him for a while. Uncle Ray don't like us. We're Catholic. Jehovah's Witnesses don't like nobody but Jehovah's Witnesses." "Stop saying that. It's true." I'll call him anyway. I'll tell him you made the honor roll so he'll know you're still doing good in school. Let him know you might get a scholarship. You could help him around his grocery store in the evenings. I shook my head. Don't worry about me. Get away before he hurts you. All he's going to do is beat you up, then go out to Fort McDowell and spend the night with that Indian woman. He ain't been home in 2 days, then walks in complaining about some stupid dinner. Tomorrow he'll be mad about his shirts, next day his shoes. My old man was standing in the crowd of badges, guns, and whispers. The ambulance crew had bandaged his head, and he was back on his feet. I'd beat him with everything I could get my hands on. He made a single finger gesture for Mama to come. My beautiful Mama looked tired of the life she was living, and that made me sad. She wiped her eyes and kissed the side of my face. You understand, don't you? You're a big boy now, almost a man. You can take care of yourself. You understand. I kissed the side of her face as my answer. Don't be angry. She twisted her lips. Don't be like him. I won't. I smiled for her. Go back inside before you get in trouble. Stop taking so much of that medication. She rubbed her eyes, then dragged her fingers down across her lips. It calms my nerves. Why you want to sleep so much? Sometimes, she patted my legs with her thin fingers. Sometimes I have nice dreams. She was distant, reciting and not living the words. I said, dreams ain't real, Mama. Sometimes. She started, then stopped and kissed my forehead. Her voice became as melodic as the poetry she always read. Sometimes they're better than what's real. I fought the dryness in my throat that always came before my tears. I was scared, 15 and a half, living in fear. She wandered away, wringing her hands and looking back at me every other step. We blew each other dysfunctional kisses. I'd be in a juvenile hall. Excuse me. The glory of live television. Excuse me. Goodness. I'd be in a juvenile hall, then in a boys' home until I was old enough to register for the draft and vote. Living with criminals would be like going to a different kind of school. Nigerians, Mexicans, whites, no matter what nationality, they were all caught up in the same game and didn't hesitate to lend the schooling on everything from 3-card money to rocks in a box to pigeon drops, and even broke down how to pass bad checks. A few were bold enough to run telephone scams from the inside. That was different from the education I was after. I had dreams of getting into Howard, to a frat life in a world filled with sorority girls. Always wanted to stomp in a Greek show, make enough money to get a small place, get Mama to move in with me. I was working on our escape. But that night, guess I had all I could stand and couldn't stand no more. I wanted to be like a superhero and rescue my mama. That was my mission in life, what motivated me. Hard to save anybody when you're locked up, when you're too busy trying to fight to save yourself, when you've made yourself a prisoner. I did want to save her. That gave my life a lot of purpose. But there would be no Howard, no sorority girl at my side. And the closest thing to a frat I would see would be a bunch of young hardheads lining up for roll call, all wearing prison blues, most with tattoos. Our Greek show was marching in sync to get our meals. Mama would find her own way to freedom. My mama would take too many pills and become an angel. My daddy would be found dead behind the wheel of his Thunderbird at Fort McDowell, ambushed and shot outside of a married Indian woman's place. On that night of changes, I sat in the back of that squad car, staring at the colorful lights that were dancing in the night to make my pain go away. Watched the rainbows, chasing the rainbows. want to pause right there. There's actually more to this story, but I'm moved. I'm legit moved by what we just read. And I'm sitting here thinking, as much as this feels like there's a lot of this that already feels familiar. It feels familiar because I can identify with this lead character, not in all the ways, but in a lot of important ways. And I'm sitting here thinking, one, what if I had read this when it was written? What if I had read this back when he was still with us, not as an ancestor? What if I had read this earlier on in my writing? How might it have informed and influenced me to know that there was a black man writing out there, writing a story like this that I could relate to? What would have been different? What might have been? Not just how might I have approached his work, but how might I have approached my own? How might I have approached other work? And I'm also thinking, what if the check had been enough? Eric Jerome Dickey didn't have to write that. Eric Jerome Dickey could easily have kept cashing those checks as a software engineer in space and aeronautics. He didn't have to give us that. What if you're sitting on a story that can mean something to somebody, that could change the way that somebody perceives themselves, that can change the way they see the value of their story? See, Eric Jerome Dickey wrote contemporary Black literature, and Eric Jerome Dickey was a consistent New York Times bestseller. Now, whereas a lot of our work gets co-opted by the hegemony, and the white community will embrace it and make darlings out of some of us, Eric Jerome Dickey didn't necessarily write the kind of stuff that white folk turn into darling work. He wrote contemporary Black fiction, which meant he wrote right now stories about right now Black people during a time when people weren't necessarily really that into us like that. And he did that and became a New York Times bestseller, which means a whole lot of people who probably looked like us found peace and comfort and life in his words. It would have been really easy for him to be like, oh man, I'm a science dude, I'm not really a writer. It might be really easy for you to say, oh man, I'm fill in blank here, I'm not really a writer. Eric found his stories and so many more that spoke to people, that represented, that held up a mirror to a lot of people. And in a world where we talk about representation, he represented. He held up a mirror and people saw themselves and they were happy for it. And meanwhile, arrogant, not yet even academics like me in my young age were questioning the value of that work, while we read because we were forced to people like Charles Dickens. And we read because we were told it was the classics of Western literature, Dickens and Shakespeare. Well, Shakespeare wrote soap operas and ribald comedies. He wrote the equivalents of Dynasty, yeah, maybe The Crown in some instances, because some of his stuff was historical and it dealt with historical figures that people had great interest in. So maybe it was, The Crown, but it was quality entertainment, but it wasn't high art. It was just good stories that people wanted to see. That's what he wrote. And sometimes he wrote stuff that was the equivalent of There's Something About Mary. Like, he had a lot of gross jokes in his stuff. So did Chaucer. Chaucer really liked to write about farting. Shows up a lot. Um, Charles Dickens did it for the paper. Do you know that? Charles Dickens' work, the stuff that we read now that's heralded as these great masterpieces, well, they started as work that appeared in weekly circulars. And Dickens was paid by the word. So if Dickens wanted to eat good, Dickens stretched a sentence out and used too many words to say what few words could say. It's like antithetical to everything that we're taught about good writing. Brevity is the soul of wit. Keep it concise. Don't say more than you have to get across your point. And Dickens was like, nah, B, because I kind of want some butter on my bread this week. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stretch this out and get this paper. That's what Dickens did. And they ate it up then because it was, in fact, the literature of the common folk. It really was. It wasn't high art. It was good entertainment. It was a good read. It was quite literally, because it was in circulars, street literature. Perspective and time and power, the dynamics of power, go really far in determining what is considered great and what is considered common. What Eric Jerome Dickey wrote deserved a lot more attention than what it was getting at the time, and it was still getting a good amount of attention. And if you, like me, were not interested in that kind of writing, I encourage you to take a second look or first look and see what a man that had so many layers had to say about life. Maybe you'll find his work to be a mirror. Maybe you'll find it to be a funhouse mirror, something that looks vaguely familiar but is warped and distorted. But unfortunately, I am falling into the pitfall of most of the world and not really recognizing greatness until it's gone. The price that I'll pay for that is never knowing what might have been had I allowed myself to be informed and influenced by this work earlier. It doesn't sound like much, but that's a steep price, especially if you're an overthinker like I am. Let's get back to the rest of this passage. The phone rang, jarred me from my sleep, and severed me from my past. Time to time, I had nightmares. I felt the pain from the fights and heard the screams from the midnight tapes, rapes in juvenile hall, but I learned to kick ass before I got my ass kicked. The phone rang again. I opened my eyes, focused on the red digits across the room. 3:32 a.m. Not quite yesterday, not quite today. Traffic in NoHo, that stands for North Hollywood, was breezing by outside my window on Chandler. Hold on. Hang on. For those of y'all who know my life, okay, no. I just got confirmation that wasn't what I thought it was. This is a live show, so when real life happens, it happens on air, and I have to deal with it. For those of y'all who know my life, you understand I'm a caregiver, and from time to time, that role and responsibility will bleed past it'll bleed after hours, and I'll have to do what I have to do. And sometimes I have to pause the reading for that. I heard something through my headphones, and I thought I was being called, but I wasn't. So excuse the interruption. Let me try and bring you back into the world. The phone rang again. I opened my eyes, focused on the red digits across the room. 3:32 a.m. Not quite yesterday, not quite today. Traffic in NoHo, that stands for North Hollywood, was breezing by outside my window on Chandler. Somewhere down by North Hollywood High, a car alarm was singing a song of distress. I snatched up the phone and answered, "Yeah, where have you been, Dante?" I knew who it was. Hearing his voice jarred me all over again. I sat up in my queen size bed. The room had a chill, and I kept the covers wrapped around me. He chuckled, then said, I was beginning to think you were dead or something. All right, how you get my number, Scams? There isn't a number I can't get. Just got it changed last week. He laughed his irksome, sneaky laugh. Happy birthday. You made it to the big 2-5 on a hot wing and a prayer. A black man's not supposed to live past 25. Then that makes me a senior citizen. I should be eligible for Social Security and a 10% discount at Denny's. You crack me up, he laughed. That's why I like talking to you. I yawned and checked my caller ID. No number was on the box. Last time he jingled the ID box told me he was in New York lounging at 5th and 56 at the Trump Tower. That was 2 weeks back. He didn't leave a message. He never did. But I knew that was my homie. Doubt if Donald Trump would be ringing me up to talk shop about the market. Nobody but Scams. Time before that, he was down at South Beach. Time before that, Montreal. Before that, it was the W down in New Orleans during the Essence Festival. Before that, Playa del Carmen. I set another yawn free before I asked, You back out in La La Land? For a hot sec. Wrapping up some business before I go on vacation. You should have accepted my offer and left with me last time. Aspen had great skiing. What you been on to? He boasted that over the last few weeks he'd been running scam after scam after scam, all nonviolent. Most of his dealings were in credit cards and green cards. Since he had women who worked everywhere from the DMV to the IRS, I already knew there wasn't any information he couldn't get, so his criminally gifted butt getting my number didn't cause me to raise a brow. Not right then. Up until a few days ago, nobody around the pool hall had seen you for months, Scam said. My job was keeping me busy. Thought one time might have shackled you down and had you on the Grey Goose heading out to Chino. I don't do prisons. One time was a nickname for the police. I yawned. Like I said, I was working. Was? Got laid off. Everything came to a screeching halt when the commercial side of the company stopped producing and the aerospace side picked up. Been out looking for another job. Sounded like he took a draw from his cigarette, then blew the smoke out before he spoke again. Why you keep wasting your talents on 9 to 5? Makes me content, that's all that matters. Don't need to be rich to be happy. What's the word? Any luck? I told him I had called my old gig to check my status. Over 20 technicians with more time than I had were waiting to get called back. No one had gotten called back in 6 months, and a few thousand more were getting kicked to the curb. The unemployment office told me to check back in a week or two, which was about the same robotic line they ran on the 20 people in front of me. I've been hitting a lot of career fairs. Hit one down on the Bonaventure and put in apps with everybody from Aerospace Corporation to Sears. Never seen that many borderline bankrupt people coming in from all over California and Nevada and Seattle looking for a job. After that, I'd flown up to Oakland, hit the Alameda County Conference and Training Center, but 5,000 out of work people beat me there. Most were in a line circled the block by sunrise. I told Scams, north or south, ain't nobody hiring. There's a synchronous world recession, especially in the high-tech world. Translate. No jobs out there. Jobs were already scarce, and those terrorists exacerbated the situation. I said, I got an interview next week. Another widget factory, labor gig, slinging boxes on a truck from dusk till dawn. You're overqualified for that kind of work. A man with no job ain't overqualified for any kind of work. Spoken like a true member of the unemployed. You got jokes. Seems like a lot of people have been humbled. I cleared my throat. They're offering 12 an hour, but I know they have a stack of apps thicker than your little black book. He laughed at that. What are your ends looking like until that comes through? They ain't looking. Almost as blind as Helen Keller. Your economic recession is in full effect. Yup. Seems like the world is fucked up. We said a few words about the war that was going on and how it had done a number on the people, both emotionally and financially. Scam said, "Ours is essentially a tragic age, so we refuse to take it tragically." Shakespeare, D.H. Lawrence. The opening lines of Lady Chatterley's Lover. I yawned. A regular Nostradamus. Come see me today. I got a few things lined up. Can't. I'm a legit man. Scams asked, "You heard from Jackson?" I met Jackson a few years back through Scams. They were the best of friends when I came along. But Jackson had been off the grid for almost 2 years. A good woman and a steady job had him on the straight and narrow. I said, "Yeah, I've been hanging with him almost every day. What you two got going on?" "We've been teaming up and looking for jobs together." "So, he's getting back on the hustle?" I debated telling Jackson's business, but Scam wasn't the type to spread the word about someone else's misfortunes, and 9 times out of 10, he already knew what was going on. I said, "His ex is suing him for back child support." "Sabrina slapped Jackson with a lawsuit?" "Yup. She filed papers and claimed Jackson never gave her a dime. I don't believe that. He cared about his kids, if nothing else. He showed me the papers from the district attorney." We said a few more things about that. In the end, Scams told me, "Be careful where you stick your dick." I laughed at those sage words. He laughed too. They were laughs of disbelief. We chit chatted about a few other people from our little clandestine world. A few were on lockdown. A few more were about to get out. A couple had died along the way. "Big Slim told me you were down at the 8 Ball gambling with Nazario," Scam said. 8 Ball was a place people went when they were desperate for cash. Trouble and money were always down there. You just had to outrun the trouble to get to the money. "Yeah," I said. "That psycho was so mad he lost his mind. Then he didn't lose much. He wanted to pay me on the spot. People say he made a scene. Big time. He made his wife give me her wedding ring to cover his debt." Scam says, "He hates to lose, especially in front of a crowd." I pawned the ring. Got 500. "You know he's looking for you. He wants a rematch so he can get that ring back. Heard he's been down at the pool hall at least 3 times a day trying to find you." Kind of figured that. That's why I ain't been back down to the pool hall. If you sweating over chump change, you must need some economic relief. My eyes went to my pine dresser. My bills were over there, piled up next to a stack of job rejection postcards. Frustration was bringing out the wolf in me. I told Scams, "Just need something to hold me over until one of these jobs come through." He said, "Come see me. You're a good worker. I could use your help." I paused. The jury in my mind went out to make a decision. "I'll pass. I have a few good job interviews around the corner." "Then come make some ends so you can take your woman out and have a good time." "Me got no woman. Got my eye on this waitress at Ed DeBevick's. You ever stopped her yet?" "Not yet. She has an LA face and an Oakland booty that won't quit. Pretty much out of my league." "How can a waitress be out of anybody's league?" "True. Be a man at all times. Never let a woman scare you. Never." Scams was working my disposition in his direction, word by word, phrase by phrase. "Either way," he said, "it's hard to get a woman being broke." Scams wasn't lying. LA had its own mentality and it cost to be the boss out here. Whenever I hit Atlas Bar and Grill, it was $5 to park, 20 to get in, and close to $10 for one drink. If I met a honey, triple that drinking budget. Breakfast at Roscoe's would add another 20. If I got lucky, a box of condoms would cost another 5. Trojans were the cheapest thing on the list. Not using one was the most expensive thing on the list. Scam said, "Pussy and money, Dante. Got money? You can get pussy. Got pussy? You can get money." We chuckled at his phrase. My eyes closed when I thought about that waitress, saw her dimples, heard her mature voice, even could see her hips when she did her sensual stroll, and wondered what she was doing right now. A second later, I exhaled. "Is this hot or cold?" Hot meant difficult. Cold meant smooth. Minimal problems. I could hear Scam smile when I asked that. His easy words worked me toward his team. He replied, "Easy rent money. Let's be upfront. I'm not down for nothing long term. What do I have to do to get you to reconsider? You can't." He didn't say anything for a few seconds. He did that when his mind was in overdrive. Sometimes I thought he had so many thoughts he had to shut down to keep them from overloading. Scam said, "You know how to find me." We left it at that. He wasn't going to give me the specifics, not over the wire. I hung up. 3:41 a.m. I dialed another number. Jackson answered on the first ring. I said, "You're up?" "Yeah. What's up, cool hand?" Scams called. "He's back and it sounds like he has a few things going on." Jackson hesitated. "Yeah, Dante, we can check on those interviews after I leave court." I understood why he was talking in code. I said, "Rob, it must be over." "Right. See you in a few hours." We hung up. No matter what time of night I called, he was awake. I didn't think much about that because I wasn't sleeping on a regular schedule my damn self. Not having a job stole away the importance of an alarm clock. It also made it easy to lose track of my days. When a man didn't have a job, didn't have a Monday, a hump day, and a payday, all days started to blend and lose value. All were just today. All he wanted was a better tomorrow. I was on edge, a little hungry. I walked over my two shades of brown carpet, went to the kitchen sink, washed my face, dried it with a paper towel, then opened the fridge. Not much in there except leftover salmon and rice and a frozen healthy choice meal. Restless. Scams had left me agitated. I did 200 sit ups, crunches, worked on my obliques, did half as many push ups, stretched my legs into a split on the left side, did the same on the right, then went down into a Chinese style split, shadow boxed against old memories until a layer of sweat glistened on my skin. I looked at that stack of job rejection postcards. Anxiety was all over me, clinging to my skin like 1,000 ticks. More push ups until my arms burned. More sit ups until my abs were on fire. Dealing with scams meant I needed to be in shape, ready to rumble, ready to run. I rested in my sweat, put on my Levi Chin Liquid Garden CD, meditated a few minutes. Then, with that music calming me, I stood in my window and looked out at the palm trees. I was lonely, broke and lonely. LA was an expensive bitch. A whore who sucked your dick and swallowed all your money, then left you sleeping on the concrete. A man stayed broke and hungry long enough, his value system was bound to change. And when it did, Scams was waiting. And thus endeth the story. Yo, that was an excerpt from Eric Jerome Dickey's. Well, I'll make sure I give you the title, Thieves Paradise. I don't know if my mods are on, but if you are, if you can put up a link for where someone might find a copy of Gumbo, or better yet, a copy of Thieves Paradise, or both, let's go ahead and share that with the people. I am, as you can. I was wondering, did anybody else sing it in their head too? It took everything in me to not sing it out loud. LA face with an Oakland booty. Yeah, when I like those kinds of things though, and I think that's one of the things about contemporary Black lit that I enjoy, is that they really do serve as a marker of our times. Um, those references, the CD that he mentioned, even the rhythms of our language, because AAVE changes so frequently and the meanings of words change so frequently. Like I remember we used to say shorty meaning a kid, and then shorty became a honey, and then shorty was just your homie. And depending on the region of the country you're in, it's all still, all of those definitions might still be in play. And you read, there was a certain way that I found myself reading, yup, because I remember around that time, yup was said differently. And then there was yup, yup, which was another whole thing. I think Teddy Riley gave us that one. Um, just like, in the early to mid 2000s, There was a period when if I read anything that had YESSIR, that was yeser, because that's what it was. Um, Finding this sort of time capsule of our rhythms and speech and all of that in this conversation between scams and goodness, who was our lead again? Did I lose his name already? Hold on a minute. Let me get myself together. I'm usually so much better than this. Dante. There we go. But having this little moment between scams and Dante really gave me a taste of those rhythms of speech. Angel Monique says, "Damn, he was brilliant," and I have to agree. And I'm going to look forward to the discovery of more of his work. He may be the late, but it's not too late to celebrate and appreciate. And I did not mean to rhyme that. You can purchase Eric Jerome's Dickey Steve's Paradise at Harriet's Bookshop, and we've got a link right there. Now, you probably can't click on the link on the screen, but for those of you who are joining us on Facebook, that link is available to you. For those of you who are not on the Book of Faces and who are following us on YouTube or on Twitch, you go ahead and you write that link down. Go ahead and get analog with it for a minute. Um, let's see, it's about 11:01. Man, I did not realize that time had gotten away from us. I guess my taking time out to kind of talk about these pieces ran us a little bit late. So we're going to go ahead and let's see. I think we'll be able to get through this story. We are going to read a little bit of Walter Mosley's. We're going to come out of The Awkward Black Man. And let me go ahead and turn this one off and go back to our comments so I can see what y'all are saying. We're going to do just this last piece from The Awkward Black Man. This is actually the first piece in the book. Let me go ahead and hold this up for you. This is his latest collections of shorts. Walter Mosley, again, another incredibly prolific writer. And we'll talk more about the life and the times of the man in another episode. But we're going to read this real quick story called The Good News Is. Now, again, this is like the last story. This is a cold read. I have not read it before. You've read and seen the disclaimer, so let's go. The good news is. The good news was, after a lifetime of carrying an extra 30 pounds or more, I was finally losing weight. Through middle and high school, into college, and then as a data interpreter for Spanish Bank, I was always bulging at the hips and waist, chest and thigh. Too big for stores that sold regular clothes and not quite fat enough for BGE, the big guy emporium. I wore clothes that were either overly snug or so loose that I needed a belt larger than my waist size that could be altered as needed with an awl. My entire life I avoided looking in mirrors and felt sure that women who showed any interest in me were the ones who had given up deciding they'd ever get the kind of man they really wanted. I married a woman, Blythe Lightner, because I didn't think things could get any better. I've divorced her over a Frenchman named predictably Francois. He was teaching her how to play cello al fresco in a village outside of Paris, while I stayed home in Greenwich Village watching terror heart porn videos and imagining that my penis could one day be as large as Brad Bonabonner Black Man's Triple B. I could afford the alimony and relieve the loneliness because I made $4,000 a week freelancing for Fortune 2000 companies that needed their employee-generated software explained to anyone from their CEOs to users, new personnel, and the federal government at tax time. I lived in Manhattan in a $5,000 a month studio apartment, and so did my ex with Francois, who was going to get a job as soon as his papers came through. I had a girlfriend named Lana who told me she loved me, but said that her impression of life was that people should live alone, answerable to no one. This, she said, made love a true choice and not a duty that inevitably transmogrified into spite. At least Lana didn't play cello, and we would turn out the light before going to bed the 1 or 2 nights we got together. And so I was emotionally placated, if not truly happy. I didn't complain because I liked being alone most nights and days and weekends, or when it was raining or snowing, or over fake holidays when New Yorkers were off celebrating Columbus or the presidents or some religious ceremony that most of them couldn't quite explain. I wasn't above seeing prostitutes, but I stopped when I realized that I had to take both Viagra and ecstasy in order to have sex with a woman I was paying to satisfy my needs. I was the fat guy, and she was the svelte woman who wouldn't talk to me if we were standing on line, one behind the other, at the gourmet garage with our tiny lamb chops and fresh herbs. But all that began to change when I started to lose weight. At first, I thought it was because of the high protein, low carb regimen that I had been so close to perfecting for years. The problem was that it took 3 days, sometimes even four, to clear the body of carbs in order for the diet to take control. And I'd buy a pint of Ben and Jerry's Cherry Garcia like clockwork every fourth day. That meant that I'd be chemically dieting for only 3.4 days a week, and that wasn't enough to counteract the glut of calories in my system from the ice cream binges. But that changed, as I've already said. I pinpointed the moment of my transition to when I was at a 7-Eleven near midnight on an alternate fourth day, and I came to find that they were out of Cherry Garcia, except for the yogurt version. My favorite flavor not available, I decided to go without. The following Tuesday, I took a sideways glance at myself in the mirror and saw that I was, just maybe, a little slimmer. I dared a full frontal gaze and saw it was true. The high protein, low carb diet was making me a candidate, possibly destined for regular man clothes stores. That was the best news I'd had in decades. Blythe getting married to Francois was second to that. Her marriage gave him papers and also freed me from the alimony treadmill. But really, what was important was that after only 6 weeks sans ice cream, I could fit into trousers with a 34-inch waist and shop at any clothes store I wanted. Lana and I were invited to Blythe and Francois's impromptu wedding, held without reservation near the Central Park Lake. It was a quasi-Buddhist ceremony conducted by Brother Franklin, an ex-convict Zen monk from upstate. Buddhism does not encourage nor does it oppose the institution of marriage, Franklin informed us. That way of the choice of the union is because of love and not duty. Lana nudged me when he said this, but I had already moved on from that relationship. I had been emailing with a woman named Rachel Dawes. I'd known her from some years, but when we ran into each other at a data interpretation convention in Boston, she commented on how good I looked and said that we should stay in touch. "You're looking good, Sammy," Blythe said when I walked up to congratulate her after the wedding. "Have you lost weight?" Finally figured out that other fourth day. "Anyway," she said, "thanks for coming, and don't be a stranger." She was probably just being nice. But I like to think that the new slimmer me was just so damn attractive that maybe she regretted the cello lessons that she'd taken a month off work for, a month away from me that she promised would make our bond stronger. For the ceremony, I wore a buttermilk colored single button two-piece suit with a cobalt shirt and a yellow, red, and black silk tie, the material of which was culled from an antique kimono. I bought the clothes to celebrate myself. The face in the mirror every morning and night was smiling at me. I was looking better and feeling more confident. But that wasn't all of it. My knees, which had bothered me since my first year at Brown, no longer hurt. I still couldn't jog very well because I didn't have the wind, but I took a couple of laps around the block 2 afternoons a week and was planning on adding a third day. The only problem was that I was sleeping a lot more. Lana would complain that the days I came over, I didn't want to have sex. "You fall asleep right after dinner," she accused. I didn't tell her that she had stopped being frisky with me long before, just after the first few months of our relationship. I wanted to say that it was only because I was looking better that she complained, but I didn't. "Maybe the diet isn't giving you enough vitamins," she suggested. "Maybe not," I admitted. "I have been sleeping a lot, and I don't eat sugar anymore. Maybe my body is transitioning. My doctor is a nutritionist. I'm sure I could get you an appointment." I didn't really want to accept her help because I was feeling mildly guilty. Rachel and I had made electronic plans to go to Miami the following month. I told Lana it was another convention. "Okay," I said. "If you could ask, I appreciate it." "The bad news," Dr. Lola Bridesmith said 2 weeks later, "is that it's malignant." I'd gone the next day to see the MD nutritionist, and she took x-rays because I hadn't had any in over 10 years. These revealed a growth in my abdomen, and so an appointment was made with an oncologist cut man for the next week. I called off the tryst with Rachel because sex and infatuation took a backseat to cancer and possible death. "The good news is," Dr. Bridesmith said, "that it doesn't look like it is spread. After a full body MRI, you'll have a simple operation followed by 3 to 5 weeks of radiation treatments and then a two-stage regimen of chemotherapy. That approach might very well clear it up completely." I have to have all that? To be sure. Lana left me because while trying to help around the apartment, she came upon the emails between Rachel and me. There were a few questionable pictures involved. Rachel stopped responding after the mention of cancer, and Blythe somehow got it in her head that I had shorted her on the alimony payments and was taking me to court. The good news was that my various employers had no problem keeping me busy. As long as I could keep awake and focused, they had work for me to do. Brian Jurgens of De Palma Distributors did suggest that I wear a wig when I addressed the senior officers of the company. You wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable, he said. They might talk about replacing you if you remind them of their own mortality. Brian had been a philosophy major at Princeton, so he gave highly sophisticated explanations for every pedestrian suggestion that he made. I was sleeping 13 hours a day and working 10, 7 days a week. 7 days a week. The MRI had revealed other growths, and so I had to have a few more biopsies. The good news was that the new polyps were so far benign. The operation cut out the malignant growth. The radiation did nothing against the missing cancer, but a woman on the subway told me how healthy my fake hair looked. The good news was that there were no other malignancies that they could see. I lost most of my clients because I was making too many mistakes. The forensic accountant that the New York State court forced me to hire found that I had shorted Blythe by exactly $549.27. The good news was that I didn't have to pay it. The bad news was that because the suit had merit, however slim, I was ordered to pay Blythe's $12,347.92 legal fees. I'd saved enough money to live as I had been living for maybe 3 years. That was something. The only good thing about chemotherapy was Mara O'Reilly. She was beautiful, I think. It's hard to tell because my memory was impacted by the disease and to a greater degree the cure. Mara was part of the MVNP, the Metro Visiting Nurse Program, and came every Tuesday and Friday to make up for the days that were lost to me in between. She had a lilt to her voice that came with her from Ireland, and there was something about the way she bathed me that made me feel like if I were just starting out, if I didn't die first. What I love about you, Samson Deal, Mara said to me one Friday, is your name and how you're always trying to see the best in what's going on. Mara, I love you, but I'm the most cynical person you've ever met. Not at all. How do you figure? Didn't you tell me that you hated Trump, but he was still the best among the Republicans, even if he wasn't one himself? That made me laugh. I spent Wednesday and Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday waiting for Mara and vomiting. I was waiting for laughter, and she never failed, not once, to deliver. The poisons I took, the doctors assured me, were wreaking more havoc on the possible cancer than they were on the rest of me. If there was any cancer left, it would be absent by the time I was dead and buried. I weighed less than I had when I was 13. The last month of my regimen had me bedridden. Mara would drop by most mornings just to see if I had expired in the night. Sometimes I'd come awake and see her folding my clothes and putting them into drawers. The good news is that you're cancer free, oncology coordinator Myron Edelsworth told me on a beautiful spring day. We'll have to monitor you for 5 years, but I'm very optimistic. Going through what you had to endure is like a Dark Ages peasant surviving a famine or war, even the bubonic plague. And here you are with a full head of hair and your healthy physique. Yes, the other good news was that I was still thin. I had been eating Cherry Garcia like it was going out of production, but the cancer had been more ravenous than I. I walked home from the doctor's office on 34th Street and took 5 flights of stairs to my room. I don't know what made me think about it, but I searched out my collection of solid gold coins from ancient Greece. I had purchased them over a 27-month period when I made triple salary working for a Persian billionaire who sold oil in the East, what people used to call the Orient. I found the black velvet box, but it was empty. All 17 coins, with faces of Athena, Alexander, even Socrates, were gone. Their value at that time was over $200,000. I was hoping to extend my convalescence with their sale if that became necessary. Hello? A young woman's sweet voice said over the phone. Hi, my name is Sammy Deal. I'm calling to speak to Mara O'Reilly. I'm so sorry, Mr. Deal. Mara moved out. Oh, did she leave a forwarding number or address? She went back to Ireland. When? 2 weeks ago? I had a padded maroon chair sitting by the hallway door. There were always books and papers in the seat and clothes draped along the back. The only time I had ever sat in it was the day I saw it and bought it, and the only one plantation at the one and only plantation furniture outlet store. I hung up the phone, dumped the clothes, books, and other detritus from the heavy chair, and pulled it over to the window. The wooden legs dragging on the oak floor sounded like an elongated fart. I sat down, thinking that the only good news was that the sun was shining and I could still feel its heat on my skin. I wasn't broke or homeless, dying at that particular moment, or fat for the time being. I had time to read even if I didn't use it, and time to watch movies that had come and gone while I was subjected to a procedure that future ages would compare to medical bloodletting. My eyesight had worsened, but I could still see. Russia had retreated from Syria for the moment, and data interpretation was still a profession that one could ply if one so desired. "Hello?" she said in that sweet lilt. "Hey, Mara, it's Sammy." She was silent on the other end of the line, many thousands of miles from my Manhattan patch of sunlight. "I know this must be a surprise," I said, "but you're the only person in the world I know well enough to call. If you don't talk to me, I don't know what I'll do." "How did you get my telephone number?" she asked, attempting an upbeat tone. I'm sure she figured that I hadn't looked at my coin collection yet, that I was calling for the reason I'd stated. The internet told me about the O'Reillys in Derry, and if I remembered that was your mother's name and that your mother's name was Dame, not so difficult, really. Modern marvels. She could do anything with her. She could do amazing things with her R's. "Why did you leave so suddenly?" I asked, affecting a tone of innocence. "My mother was sick." "I'm sorry to hear that. How's she doing?" "Fine, but a better question would be, how are you?" "Cancer free and unemployed. I have time on this earth that I wasn't expecting." "I'm so happy for you, Samson." I believed her. "Thank you," I said. "It was a hard road, but I'm grateful for it." "Grateful for all that suffering." It started out that I just thought I was losing a little weight. I've always been chubby. I blamed everything on that, but the cancer burned away the fat and allowed me to understand what a lucky man I am. "That's really quite wonderful now, isn't it?" she said. "Mara." "Yes, Samson?" "Would you consider marrying me?" Her silence was exquisite. I was completely serious about the proposal. She could lie and say that she hadn't stolen the coins. Maybe she let a plumber in or a window washer and had run downstairs to clean the sheets that I'd vomited upon. It didn't matter that she'd robbed me. She'd been there with that gorgeous smile, and I could almost remember, and with that voice that was the first cousin to a song. I would have died if she hadn't been there. That much I was sure of. "That's a beautiful thing to say, Samson. You're kind and gracious to ask, but I don't think you know me well enough. If we were to marry, you might feel differently than you do right now." "I know you, Mara. And more than that, I know myself. If you say yes, I will be your husband through all the years, no matter how lean or how fat. I will be your husband, and you will be the mother of our children, and they will have Irish names, and their second tongue will be Gaelic." Again, the rapture of silence. I could feel her hopes and regrets over the fiber optic lines. After a very long pause, she said, "Can I think on it?" "Do you want me to give you my number?" "I already have it, silly. I was going to call you after your last visit to the doctor." "Okay," I said. "I'll wait for you to answer, but remember, I'm completely serious and absolutely nothing would change how I feel." We said our goodbyes and disconnected. I didn't leave my apartment for the next 2 weeks. I ordered all my meals, even Cherry Garcia, and sat by the window in the displaced chair next to the phone. I was waiting for her answer. I didn't give a damn about those coins. After 18 days, I called Mara's mother's phone again. The line had been disconnected. There was no forwarding number. There was no damn O'Reilly listed in all of Ireland, Wales, or England. Mara was, go- Mara was gone. Maybe I should have told her not to worry about the money. Maybe I should have said, you can consider those coins a wedding gift. The days went by and my health improved. I gained back all the weight that the cancer and its treatments took. I went to work as a data interpreter again. Blythe called with a long explanation about how my cancer had upset her so much and that she just had to sue me. I didn't understand the logic, but accepted her apology anyway. Lana called and asked me why I hadn't told her that I was dissatisfied with our relationship. For some reason, her question brought Mara to mind. Mara and my stolen fortune. I missed that Irish lass the way parents yearn for the days of their children's cute mispronunciations. I love you. The love I felt for the nurse while I was dying meant more to me than anything life had to offer. She was what I was looking for even before I understood why the weight was coming off so fast. Well? Lana asked. I disconnected the call and went down to the 7-Eleven, hopeful that they had the regular Cherry Garcia and still hoping, ever so slightly, that when I got back upstairs, Mara would have left a message and a number, a few rolling R's, and a question that I could answer. And thus endeth the story. Really, really love the way it was written. Certain parts of it didn't necessarily thrill me, but the man's writing style is par excellence. Please, please, please excuse my long and protracted slug of water. We are well past our time. It's 11:22, and I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a close. Thank you so much for coming out. This was our first read of the beginning of the year, the first read of 2021. And thank you to everyone that came out. And especially for those of you who stayed, even though we moved a little bit after time. Darina Turner, it's so good to see you here. And you say that you love Walter Mosley. I'm glad of that. I hope you appreciated tonight's read. Janine Cook gave it 4 lightning bolts. Is that right? Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I'm going to take it. I feel like 4 lightning bolts has to be a good thing. And please, please, please follow and share our pages on Facebook. You can find us at Storytime with Julian. Twitter, it's at Storytime Julian. IG, it's at Storytime Julian. On Clubhouse, yes, I'm on Clubhouse. It's at Storytime Julian. On YouTube, it's youtube.com/Storytime with Julian. And if you ever want to see the random things that I post about, you can find my Twitter at Magnet for Awesome. Now, listen, I don't make these kinds of pleas often. But I'm going to ask a favor of you, and I need this. I need everybody who can hear me to do this. Please, 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 ma'am, please, sir. Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, after you've had a good time with us over here at Storytime with Julian, just give us a shout out on your various social media pages. Spread the word about this thing, okay? I appreciate you following the pages. That's fantastic. But Storytime can only grow if you share what you get from this. So if you get anything from this at all, if there's a quote, a pull line, a moment that you think, man, so and so that I know would really enjoy this, the only way they're going to know about it is if you talk about it. So I need you to talk about Storytime with Julian. I need you to talk about it the way you talk about The Crown. I need you to talk about it the way you talk about Sylvie's Love. I need you to talk about it the way you talk about Real Housewives of Fill in the Blank or blank ampersand blank on VH1, whether it's love and hip hop and basketball, wine and women. I don't know whatever the show is, but whatever is the in the vernacular of previous years, the tea. I need you to talk about Storytime with Julian like it too is the tea, even though I try to bring coffee because I ain't really got time for tea. But please share Storytime with Julian on your social media pages. Talk about the show, have conversations about it. Please continue to promote it because I want to continue to bring this goodness, not just to you, but to more and more and more people. All right. Happy New Year to you from everybody involved with Storytime with Julian. I will see you again on Thursday. And that's it. Peace. Here come the credits or the whatevers. You know what I'm talking about. This is taking too long. Bye.